Hey, what's going on guys? Mark back in the workshop of Mark's Aquatics. Now then, on today's little episode, I thought we would rig these little tanks up. I was just going to rig one up for you, so you can see how I do it. This is how I've bred them in the past, and you only need a few little things. Obviously we got another tank that's exactly the same as this, as you saw in the last video. If you didn't, pop back and have a look, and while you're there, hit that subscribe button and the notification bell for upcoming videos. Okay guys? And so what we're going to do with this little tank today is we're going to take it all apart. This is a tiny little starter tank. It's 12 litre kids aquarium starter kit, and they're meant for cold water. They're meant for cold water fish, little things like, you know, little goldfish of that nature, or little danios, mountain minnows, stuff like that. But when it comes, you get that as well. Now that's inside it. You get a tiny little filter there with a little sponge in it. To be honest, they're pretty rubbish, and but you can soup them up a little bit. We've got a packet of gravel there as well, which we're not going to use. Now it's very important when you're breeding Betta, Siamese fighters, that you keep a clean bottom on the tank. Okay, you don't want any debris on the bottom, any media of anything, because when they lay the eggs, obviously they drop the eggs. When you see them and they come together, the female will drop the eggs, he'll fertilize the eggs, and then a lot of them will fall to the bottom of the tank. Now if you've got substrate in the bottom of your tank, it's going to, the little tiny eggs, they're only small, and they will fall between the cracks in the media, and you're going to lose them. He won't be able to find them, and they're going to rot in there, and it's not going to be any good at all. But if you've got a clear bottom, he will go along and he'll pick every single one up, and he won't miss them. And likewise, when the water's in there, the bubble nest is there, he'll take them up, put them up into the bubble nest, in amongst the bubbles, and then now and again you'll see some fall out, but then you'll see him go down, he'll pick them up and put them back up into the bubble nest. Okay, so that's very important there, that we that's so we don't have any substrate in the tank whatsoever. Now these come with these little packages and packing and all that stuff. They come with a nice little lid as well, which is great because it's going to aid in that that condensation forming in there, which is going to keep that temperature in that we want. There's a few little holes here. We could put some sellotape over those to block them off, and I'll just leave a very, very small hole here just so we can ventilate the tank, but keep the majority of the condensation and that warmth in the tank. Okay, now I'm going to do this in the house. I'm not going to do it out in the workshop here, because number one, I need a bigger workshop, and number two, it's the temperature. It's going to be a lot more stable in the house, so we're going to try and keep that. It's going to be a lot more static in the house, and we're going to keep a better temperature in there for them. So that's that lid. We can take that lid off now. We can pop that to one side, take out all these little waves and other things that they put in there to get your kids to think it's a nice little toy, and we can get onto it. It catches their eye. There you go, Aquatown, look at that. Nice bit of cardboard. Now that cardboard's going to come in handy to go in between the two tanks. Well, I don't know about that. It's got these little fish on. You might think it's another fish, so I probably won't do that. I'll use another piece of cardboard, and also in here we've got some stickers. Look, Aquatown stickers, little sticking fish. There you go. I'll give them to my daughter. She'll stick them all over the house, no doubt, because she loves her fish as well. And on the bottom we've got another cover, and now we've got a nice little tank, 12 litres, all siliconed. You can get these in the UK. If you're in the States or anywhere else in the world, no doubt there's other companies that do these small little starter tanks for kids. So they're ideal for breeding Betta, because they're you know, you're only going to want 6 inches of water in this tank, so you only really want to half fill it. And that's another reason when they're mating and they're producing the eggs, that way when the eggs drop, he hasn't got so far to retrieve them and to put them back up into the bubble nest. Okay, so that's why we only use about 6 inches of water in there. Now we're going to need in this tank, actually this is quite a nice little tank actually. They've even put like plastic rubbery edges. It's quite hard plastic, but it's like a 90-degree piece of plastic they put on all the corners, so there's no sharp edges, obviously, because it's designed for your children. So that's quite a nice smooth edge there. That's quite a nice little touch for a cheap tank. As I said, I only paid £10 each for these, which are very, very cheap as well. Nice tough little glass, plastic on the top, reinforced on the base as well, so we can't go wrong. Condensation tray. Now then, what we've got to do is put our heater in. The submersible mini heaters, and they're 50 watt each. Now we're going to place that along the back and take that out of the packaging. It's only 17 centimeters long with the suckers on. It's got its nice little indication light there, tidy length of lead on it as well, and it goes from 17 degrees all the way up to 35 degrees centigrade. And you've got a nice little dial on the top there, which you can dial up to what you want, which is great. Also, we got a little cable tie on there, we can whip that off. Pull that lead out, give it a nice little stretch. That's what I tend to do to get those old kinks out of it. And I'll just suck that then diagonal. I'll just move those out of the way a minute. It's already putting 6 inches of water in here, guys. We don't really want it out the way too much. We need it under the water, submerged. You've got a minimum line there, which if you can have a look on the heater itself, right there, there's your minimum. So anywhere, as long as that element there is in the water and covers it up to that black top, that cap, you're going to be okay. So so that's that bit done. Now obviously we can put this around this way, because that's our little leads and everything then are going to come straight out of there. Now I'm not going to use any filtration in this at all. I could put a small sponge filter in there, but normally what I do is every 2 days I'll give it a 50% water change. So that's 6 inches of water, I'll take 3 inches out and then replace that with clean water probably about every other day. So we keep all the nasties down to a minimum. All your ammonias, nitrites and nitrates will be kept down to a minimum that way. So that's the plan so far. Now, so without filling it, another thing I bought as well, I went up to my local, if you're in the UK, we've got shops around here called Aldi and Lidl, and I bought this little lamp. Bought it yesterday, and oh, I did have it the right way up. It's the under cabinet lighting. Now it's a soft white light. If you look on the back there, on the Kelvin rating, you've got 3000 Kelvin warm white, which is perfectly adequate to grow plants, because they're going to put a little bit of oxygenating plant in there, or guppy grass or something like that. They're only 7 watts, so they're super cheap to run, and they last for 20,000 hours, which is a long time. And that's going to work just right, because I can span half of it on one tank and half of it over the other tank, which is going to light up both. Comes with a little cable there that you can pull out, with like a little kettle lead on the end that you just plug in, and the little light has got a nice little diffuser on it, so it's not a bright light. It's not going to dazzle them. So we just plug that into the end like that, and as you can see, it fits perfectly over the top of that tank there. That was about £14 for that light, and it's going to come in handy for other projects. I'll just plug it in so you can see it working. And it's got a nice neat little switch under there. So that's the sort of illumination that you get. I'll just turn the workshop light off. There you go, it's a little bit better. So that, no pun intended. And there you go. So that's that set up like that now. We're going to duplicate that the other side, but as you can see, if I move that light halfway over, it's just going to give that nice split effect on both those tanks for 7 watts. So that's quite a cheap way of doing things. And then obviously once the process of breeding's done and the male's in there looking after the eggs, we can just change that and put that on the single tank later on. Right, like I said, apart from filling this up with water now, we're going to fill it up to about halfway. And now the temperature range you want to keep it to around 28 degrees 28 degrees centigrade, 82 degrees Fahrenheit. Now what I do, other people do it as well, people do it different. They do breed in a different range, but this is the range that I've used in the past. I normally keep it to around 80, and then a little bit further ahead, we'll get into that a bit later on, I pump it up a couple of degrees, and that normally kicks them off and gets them going that way. But apart from that, now we've got to fill them up with water, and we've got to put in a couple of almond leaves. Now I've just put a workshop light on again for you. I've got a monster bag of Indian almond leaves here, courtesy of Richard from Pond Guru, which he sent me a good while ago, and I've still got thousands of them here. So we're going to put a couple of those in, which is going to tan that water up and lower that pH, which is what they need when they start to breed. It replicates the conditions where they're from in the wild, where you get a lot of leaf litter in the water and tannins form in these little pools and where they breed in the wild. So we just got to replicate that and get that temperature right, get them make sure they're having a nice time, and they start displaying to each other. Obviously we'll get into that as time goes on, as we go through the series. But now we've got to put the leaves in. Doesn't matter how many leaves you put in, I put in 2 or 3 because it's going to tan the water up anyway. And but just remember, you're not going to overdose on tannins. So we don't want to do anything with these. We're just going to let them sit because we're getting everything ready. So we can put in 3 in each tank. I'll put in just to get the water quality right. There you go, there's another 2 there, and we got 3 there. Bung another one in, it's not going to hurt. You're never going to overdose on tannins, guys, so don't worry about that. And the good thing about the Indian almond leaf is, if you didn't know, is its antibacterial properties and anti-fungicidal properties, which these release into the water, and which is fantastic for the eggs, because obviously the eggs could get fungus on, and these will kill off any fungal spores or anything that could harm the eggs. And it also is really good for healing wounds in the fish. And we know that that when bettas are starting to court and everything else, and you put them in, they can get a little bit aggressive, and they could take nips out of each other's fins and mess each other up. Or normally he'll do that to her, but that will aid in her recovery as well. So these are fantastic, and they're a must. You really must have these in when you do it. And also you can tape them up for the bubble nests up in the top as well, which is what I've done in the past. So you can use little polystyrene cups, which I've used in the past as well. You just literally cut that down the middle there, all the way around, cut that in half, put a bit of tape on there, and stick it just on top of the water there with a bit of tape. I'll show you how you do that. I'll set it all up in a minute. We'll go into the living room, and because that's where I'm going to be doing it. So it's where I normally work, in my little office space. I'll be doing it there, so I can keep an eye on everything and hopefully get some really good footage of them dropping the eggs and everything else, which is going to be interesting for you guys to watch. It's a very, very simple setup to breed Betta. I don't know if you watch a lot of programs, a lot of YouTube channels. A lot of people have covered it in a lot of different ways, and people from all over the world, you'll see them in their back gardens. They have tubs out in the garden where their temperatures are correct for them, and they use ice cream tubs. They use all manner of things, little tiny ponds, buckets, Tupperware, you name it, they'll do it in there, because they just need that shallow water and those conditions and that temperature, and then nature takes its course, and then they'll breed naturally. So it's but doing it this way, you get to watch the process from the side instead of just through the top, because a lot of these guys are just breeders for sale. And but we're going to do it. We're going to rear some up. I'll probably take some to my local fish shop, keep some, start line breeding some later on. And it's a time consuming, but it's an interesting little ride, especially when you start getting into the your own little cross, you know, your strain, and breeding that, and breeding different, that colour in that specific colour that you want, fin shape, size that you want, and all those things. It's really interesting. Or you just want to breed and just have hundreds of Betta. It's up to you really. It's whatever takes your fancy. It's just taking your hobby up that next level. so I think what we'll do now is unplug all these lights, the tanks. We'll take everything into the living room. I've got to get some water. We're going to use some water from my carbon block, which I use in all my tanks, which I will show you later on. It's just a massive carbon block. They're made by Evolution Aqua. For all you pond guys out there, you'll know what I'm talking about. You basically fix one end into the into it on a hose pipe fitting, and then on the other end it's like a big sausage full of carbon, and then you just one in, one out. Clear that black ash water out first, that dust, sorry, out first, and then you have perfect dechlorinated, and all that rubbish and heavy metals and things gets taken out by the carbon. But or you can use water tap conditioner, ager. It's entirely up to you. I've got both, and so that's what we're going to do. We're going to get some water in these. We can get them up to temperature. Put the almond leaves in. I'll cut the cup in half. I'll put that in the top. Another good thing about these is when it's on the surface of the water and it's on the half like that, it keeps that condensation inside here as well, so it'll stop those bubbles from popping, because sometimes you can take the lid off of the tank and some of the bubbles, or a lot of them, can just pop because of that air, that difference in temperature, and they can pop. You'll soon put them back, but it's just disrupting things, so you want it to go smoothly as possible and stress-free as you can make it for them. So I think we should go in there now. I'll set these guys up so the next time you see everything, they'll be side by side, full of water, with almond leaves in, and we'll go from there. Alright guys? Right guys, there we go. We're all set up now. I've set it up in the living room, just up on my little shelves. And we've got the Indian almond leaves in there. We've got the heaters in there. We've got a little bit of glare. You can see me in there. Hello. And we're all set up. We've put some Java moss in there from the shrimp room, and we've got 3 Indian almond leaves in each of the tanks. Now we've put the temperature up now as well. We've got that all up and running, and that is running nicely at around 80 Fahrenheit, which is about 27 centigrade. So we're going to keep that going now on there. So what we've got to do now is we're going to go and get Jack, and we've got to go and get his girlfriend, and we're going to put them in each side. If you can see there, I've put a little bit of card and just cut a little loop in it there, so we can take that out and replace that every couple of days and let them flare up to each other. We can condition them up and get them ready. This is a bit of a drawn out process, but it's well worth it in the end when you get that little bubble nest full of eggs and them little wrigglers start swimming all over the place. It's fantastic. Right, so I think what we'll do now is I'm going to go out and I'm going to grab Jack, I'm going to grab his girlfriend, and we're going to put them in the tanks, okay? There you go, they're in the tank, all next to each other. I've got the cardboard in between, just out of curiosity now. He's underneath his cup there already, blowing a few bubbles, which is nice to see. I'll just take the card out and see how they react. Oh, there we go. We've got some lovely flare in there from Jack. Good stuff. And what you want to do now is you want to leave it out for a while, let them do a good old bit of flaring, bit of courtship, and then put it back, and every couple of days take it out, condition them up, and then we can introduce them to each other. Look at that, really interested in each other there. He's under his little cup again there. So that's really good news so far. She's eager to get in there as well. That's normally the way when you see they're really interested, they really go at each other. And the good reason is as well, when you put all this moss in and stuff, obviously she's going to end up in his tank when they become familiar with each other and they're all ready to go. But you've got to have lots of places for them to hide as well. That's why we put the almond leaves in there, for a dual purpose, because they can hide in amongst it, and also it adds the tannins as well. Now I'm going to do a 50% water change on these tanks every couple of days, and every time we do a water change we add more tannins back in. Now I've got some Indian almond leaf tea bags, which I'm going to steep in some warm water or boiling water and extract that from it and make a concentrate from that, and I'll show you how I do that on another video as we go along. And then we can reduce it down and we can get some concentrate, and then we can add some of that in every time instead of putting more leaves in and disturbing them too much, we can just add those tannins into the water, and on every water change to keep that nice and keep that pH stable. And he seems very, very happy in there. We've got the lids on as well, so you can see the condensation forming on the glass as well as the lid, which is going to keep that temperature in there. And everything's looking pretty good so far. Now you've really got to watch your feeding as well when you're breeding, because you don't want to be adding too much food, because otherwise they can suffer with a disease called dropsy, which is or pine cone disease they call it. All the scales stick out from the body, and it's an awful disease. It's very hard to get rid of. So you don't want to be overfeeding them at this stage, obviously for water conditions and for their safety and health as well. So we go easy on that. We give them a few bloodworms and the varied foods as well. Good range of food, some pellets, whatever you've got you can use. A few little live insects, if you find them kicking around, you can always throw them in, little fruit flies and things like that, which they'll love. And that's good for their digestive system as well, because you find a lot of these factory made foods are they're full of fillers and different things, and that can actually cause bloat in them quite easily, so we don't want them to get that. So by putting in the shell of the animal as well, the insect, sorry, you get a lot of that keratin and different things in there of that nature. That's a good roughage, and that actually goes through them and that cleans them out, because that's what they would be feeding on in the wild. So that's what we tend to feed them, and try and replicate as much as you can what they get in the wild, which is insects buzzing around these little pools, and they'll be hopping up and grabbing them off the surface, mosquito larvae, all things like that of that nature. So that's what we're going to do. So that's the next stage. So we're going to have to do this now for a few days. Jack's off again, and he'll start building his bulb nest. We're going to repeat this now throughout the week, and hopefully by next Sunday we should have a result, which will be really nice. Or maybe it'll take a bit longer, or maybe it won't happen at all. Sometimes it doesn't happen always, but we'll see how it goes. They look pretty keen so far, and like I say, I used to breed a lot of these in the past. I had hundreds of them at one point. I had a whole room dedicated to breeding these little fellas. I had thousands of them going, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. So it's a bit of a memory lane trip. I did it many years ago when I was in my teens, and really looking forward to doing it again. Anyway guys, I hope you like that little video. If you're new to the videos and the channel, please hit that subscribe button and the notification bell for upcoming videos. That way you're not going to miss anything. And as always guys, you're all stars. Love you loads. Take care, and I'll see you on the next edition of Mark's Aquatics. Bye for now.
Just me and my guitar.